Okay, Google says it's 4 o'clock. We'll call our meeting to order. Paul, can you take the roll, please?
Certainly. Ms. Tompkins.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. O'Reilly.
Here.
Mr. Eberl.
Here.
Ms. Falke.
Here.
Mr. Peschel. Here. Mr. Kaplan here. Well as the utility staff.
Thank you very much. Was the meeting appropriately noticed?
Yes, it was sent out to various media outlets, posted here at the utility, the library, city hall, and city of Marshfield website.
Thank you. That would bring us to number 3, our public comment period. At this time, the commission would recognize members of the public who've indicated a desire to address the commission. Do we have any members of the public wishing to address the commission today? Seeing none, move on to number 4, commissioner and staff comments. Do we have any commissioner comments to get going? I would just highlight that on the commission calendar that's posted on the commissioner's website, Nick and I updated the calendar for 26, and we added in the couple items that came out of our commission self-eval for discussion through the course of the year, just so you have a heads up there. Do we have any staff comments tonight?
None.
None. Moving on to number 5, behind the meter solar projects.
Yes, so last month, Stanley Minnick with One Energy Renewables joined us and provided a presentation on 4 proposed solar projects located on land that's owned by Marshfield Utilities. The projects will be owned by One Energy Renewables, and therefore we don't really have a capital or a job order approval needed today. However, job orders will be needed in the future once we get to the point of, once we have various approvals and permits in hand. And then we'll have job orders as it relates to interconnection cost and upgrades, along with some distribution system rebuilds. So as we continue down the road and to show support and strengthen our position of the projects, we're requesting the commission to consider a motion to proceed with advancing all 4 sites and pursue the necessary due diligence and permitting. And then understanding that with any final agreements will be brought back to the commission for approval as appropriate.
Is anybody who'd like to make a motion to start out?
I'll move to approve all postings.
Motion to approve all 4 sites. Second by Gabrielle. Any discussion?
Question.
Please.
Has there, excuse me, been any contact made with Marshfield 2? Like Melanie Galvin? I know there was some concern about how close we be to those homes, and has anybody talked with them?
Not at this point in the process, but that'll be a part of it as we move forward.
Other questions? Discussion?
The one thing that I was thinking more about is just making sure that the contracting, I don't know if it's been discussed, but just making sure that the contracting protects, the parties involved if something happens to the developer, to One Energy Renewables, just making sure that there's something there. If they go under, if they go bankrupt, like what are our options, that kind of stuff.
Some of the same issue Mike brought up at that last meeting. Yeah. All right, good. Other issues? Questions? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is unanimous. Number 6, pilot review.
So last year we provided an update on the final pilot amount in December, and based on your feedback at that time, it was determined that this would be something that you'd like to see on an annual basis, just to get a sense of how the final pilot came together. So we put together in the packet a review. You can see that the pilot increased to just under $2 million, about a $20,000 increase from last year. And then in addition, this year I was able to reach out to the city staff and the assessor, and they provided me back a list of the top tax-paying entities in the city. And I was able to add that into the chart as well. And as you can see that, our pilot payment is about $2 million to the general fund. The next closest tax-paying entity where the funds go directly to the city's general fund is at 1.17, or about $800,000 more, if you will, for reference. So it kind of helps demonstrate that we are the largest tax-paying entity in the city. So Just spot for information and welcome any conversation or questions you might have.
Yes.
Just I didn't realize that this was a state statute that was developed in 1996. Before that, how did this work? Was this just tweaked in 1996 or?
I don't know the answer to that.
It, it, when I look at the history, I think it went through a considerable change in '96. I don't know I was in high school, so I don't remember all the details. So,
Yeah.
We can look into it and get back to you. I don't know
And
all the details.
was it because I remember when I was on the CDA board for like Parkview and Cedar Rail Apartments, they pay a pilot as well. Is it government entities that pay a pilot mostly in Marshfield, or is the statute, like who falls in this statute umbrella?
Electric and water utilities.
This is just electric.
This is
and water.
specific tax equivalent for municipal
Oh,
utilities.
so there's other entities that must have different statutes.
Right.
Okay.
Like, for instance, if an investor-owned utility in their communities and how they pay taxes is no pilot, it goes to the state as part of the utility aid payment, comes back as a percentage of that. Solar projects, depending on their size, have a lot of they're tax exempt, given different magnitude of them. Telecommunication companies, I think they pay into. I'm not sure how they pay actually. Gas companies generally pay into the utility payment as well.
Okay.
So there's a bunch of different ways. Wastewater, I don't believe there's any tax equivalent that's paid to the city. Telecommunications, as far as our fiber utility, there's no tax equivalent there as well.
Okay. And then one more question. That was one. So because we're talking about the dark fiber policy, is our utility total plant value that is this assessment? Does that dark fiber utility come under this?
I don't believe so. It's just the electric and water, which follows the
Just electric
statute.
and water. Okay. So, okay, interesting. Okay.
Any other questions related to Nick's report on this? Seeing none, and you haven't asked for any action on this. This was really just to give us a heads up on what the calculation looks like for this year.
Yeah, this will be the pilot payment that's paid in in April for 2025.
Okay. Number 7, MU strategic plan quarterly update.
Yep. So this is the quarterly update. As you can see, there are a number of areas that have changed or been added since the last update. We put that all in red to bring the text out to highlight those. Just a few to note, electronic bill payments is an area we continue to focus on. At this point, we're at just over 72%, which based on my conversations with other colleagues in the state and out of the state, we're not very high. We're much higher than many of the others when it comes to that. We have there's been quite a bit of activity. We put together a group of employees focused on employee wellness, which is they're working on going to different conferences and local groups to talk about it and to get feedback and ways to help bring those ideas back into our organization to again focus on our employees. And then we've also had some progress on AI. By no means are we experts at this point, but it's an area that we keep trying to monitor and trying to figure out ways to incorporate into our operations to improve efficiencies. And then our GIS, our mapping software, is an area we continue having meetings along with development activity there to help advance that software platform to utilize it to its fullest.
Any questions on Nick's update? Natasha?
I just had a comment. I just wanted to say thank you for these updates. They're super, super helpful and they help us stay on track. I really appreciate them. And one of the things I appreciated was reading through about the EV vehicles and sort of the feedback from the staff about needing to run during the winter. I mean, that's just interesting things to hear. And I just like it that staff is being consulted and that there's sort of that give and take of what's best for where we live.
I was curious on the electronic payments. When you say 72%, do you have any sense of how many of that is credit card versus ACH?
Joe's not with us tonight, but I'm sure he would know the number. I've seen it, but that'd be guessing.
Yeah, I
Okay.
would guess a larger amount. between that and then love fees.
I know we just started that a couple years ago, so I'm just curious what that processing fee is turning into.
Yeah, the socializing that fee has definitely helped entice customers to go that route. We did renegotiate that contract, I want to say last year, and we were able to lower because of the higher utilization, we were just to claim that, hey, we should see a reduction, which we were able to negotiate and have some savings.
Thank you. Anything else? Number 8, a glue update.
So alphabet soup as normal. So this is the quarterly update. Just summarizing, there's been a number of data requests that you can see. Obviously, the team and I put together quite a bit of work on the annual meeting, getting that up and together. There's a FERC filing, settlement conference process that we went through, a number of data submittals that from both the state and federal or MISO level, and obviously a number of meetings and projects that we're working on for group.
Questions? Wow. If we didn't have some meaty stuff, I'd be worried we were going to be done real quick. Number 9, MU Commission Governance, continuing discussion on the draft dark fiber policy.
Yeah, so the packet included some plant figures and some billing details and an update to the policy. I apologize, this afternoon when I was going through my review preparing for the meeting, I noticed that the policy I included in the packet wasn't redlined. Sometimes when I combine files, some reason the red line goes away. So in the policy that was in the packet, there was some change to the wording in section 3 under number 3 as it related to the billing frequency. Took from just trying to clarify that a little bit stronger than the way we had it worded before. So that was the only change to the policy we made, since it seemed like that was something you guys agreed on last time. And then just there's a quick review on the fiber plant, and it's broken into overhead versus underground. The total replacement cost as of today is estimated at just under $2.6 million. And just keep in mind that amount increases every year because obviously the cost for labor, equipment, material, and so on continues to go up. So I'll give that update at that point and welcome
Okay.
questions or comments.
Having had a month to chew on this, anybody want to kick us off? Nick?
I just want to say that it really helps to have all this information, you know, that we were looking for last month. It wasn't really clear. I think that, you know, as some of us that haven't been here longer start to get used to some of the stuff that we're looking at more, wanting more information to make decisions, and this really cleared things up for me.
How did it clear things up for you, Nick?
Because there's numbers I can put to it.
Yeah, the numbers do help. Okay.
And I should note that later in the packet, when we get to job orders, there is a job order for the fiber utility. Unfortunately, we had a failure of a few spans that we had to replace related to a project here recently. So that was the project cost about $10,000. So it was only 2 spans, so you can see how it adds up very quickly and it's kind of out of the blue, if you will.
So, Natasha, go ahead.
I have like 4 things that I feel like we might need to discuss as a commission. So I
You
don't know where
want
it
to
should
list
start.
them to start with?
Do I what?
List them to start with?
Okay, so one is, what's the best way moving forward for if there's new customers for the capital investment costs? So that would be one, because here it has one way of doing it, but I'm wondering if there might be a better way.
Okay.
And I don't know, it's truly a question, but the second would be, well, I guess part and sort of a subsection of that question is what does it really mean to be leasing it? Especially if we've already paid for the installation. So that goes into that because leasing is mentioned in section 3 2 times. And then one of the questions was about cash equivalent, like sort of like cash on hand. It was 1.5 times. And I just couldn't remember what's the ratio for water and electric? Is that the same, similar? And then lastly, well, then three, to talk about whether a 12% ROR or a 7%, I think that needs to be discussed. And then fourth, is there anything in this policy that we should put in that would add funds to the commission fund? The commissioner's fund. So those are four things.
Okay. That kind of follows the outline of the policy. Shockingly. So let's just work our way through it one section at a time then. The draft. Section 1, anybody have any thoughts, comments, pushback as we work our way down?
Did we agree that we were gonna make sure the name was consistent across the board? Like if it's dark fiber here, it's dark fiber in financial statements,
I think the hope is that if you approve this policy at some point in the forward,
all available.
then we'll roll that way. However, I will note that as much as I love doing this, I think I'll probably have to get in front of the council to ask that the policy that created the utility commission get updated as well, because it does say communication utility there. But I think that's to be consistent and to be thorough. That would, if you guys feel that that's the right terminology and the route you want to go, then that would be another step in this process. But
Agreed.
I feel that dark fiber is much, it avoids the confusion that we keep running into at this point. So I think it'd be a good step.
However, every time I hear the term dark fiber, I think of the dark internet. Which is a negative thing.
Yeah,
So I think in section 1, I would like to see a couple small changes. I would like to see it worked in. MU recognizes its dark fiber network as a strategic utility asset. That's all good. We have to get in there that it's a non-regulated utility as opposed to our water and our electric utilities. I think that the general introduction is the right place to say that.
Yeah.
Actually, that's really the only change in that section I'd like to see.
The name seems misleading to me, actually, just because dark fiber, by definition, maybe Nate, you could back me on this, means it's not used.
Oh.
Well, you guys can go wherever you want. Dark fiber, from our perspective, is that we provide this connection, and then it's the electronics that get connected to that light it. We don't provide generally, we don't provide the electronics.
I gotcha.
So like even the electric and water utility, they're providing the electronics to connect to light up the fiber so there's communication or flow of information. But if you want to make it fiber optic utility, if you want to make it dark fiber utility, if you want to,
I'm curious what Nate's thoughts are, if he doesn't mind chiming in.
Nick's got it right, and
Uh-huh.
the fiber strands basically are unused until somebody puts something on.
And then it's no longer dark fiber. But yeah, I guess that's a good thing.
Definitely.
We're
It
providing,
also kind of refers to the fact that we don't see the traffic that's on.
okay,
It's private at that point.
I gotcha.
I would say let's partition off the naming after we get the policy squared away. All right, let's move on to section 2 then. New projects, new customers, however we want to define them. Nick, I think you gave background last month that you put this methodology in here because it's the most common in electric and water, because you checked other fiber utilities.
well, it follows what we've generally done in the past, and it does follow what we do in the water and the electric utilities. Basically, if someone wants new service or an extension or a modification of our facilities, they pay for that cost generally. Um, that's part of it. The other part is just from a simplistic standpoint, and from a cash flow perspective as well. Because you could have a customer that comes tomorrow and was tens of millions of dollars. How would we source that? And how would we ensure that our investment is maintained? And it creates a whole nother layer of challenges that we would have to guard against, or risks that we have to guard against. So that's the structure behind it. Um, is it perfect? No, by no means is it perfect.
So similar to electric and water, is that what you call contributed plant and equipment then?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's electrical water. We pay taxes on everything once it's installed, but yeah, we book it into the depreciation as contributed capital. Like if it's been, the customer has paid for it versus utility funded. And if you think about it from the job order perspective, those job orders that you approve are obviously utility funded. Those that you see that are less than 25,000 can be utility funded, but generally the customer or funded by the property owner or the requesting entity, I should say. And that's all regulated by the state. It's not something we choose internally to do.
And is it correct in making an assumption that we could design anything and put it in this section number 2? I mean, if we wanted to say that we would pay for, as a utility, pay for all new construction, we could, and anything in between. So to your question, what's best or what else could we look at? Anything.
I mean, I just wonder if maybe the initial startup, I don't know, but I just wonder, does it deter people, deter customers? Is that, I don't know. I don't know if like saying, hey, there's a payment plan, or I don't know, but it just seems like it could be potentially people saying, well, I'm not gonna do it.
I think I'm curious in the context of that. Because the inception of the service was to serve the electric and water utilities needs. And then secondarily to leverage that with some income. But how big is the market? I mean, are there 100 customers for this service in Marshfield? I think you showed us there's less than 12 already.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how big is the market we're talking about? How many potential new customers are there?
Not a lot. I'd say the market is pretty small. I mean, if you think about it from the number of businesses or companies or whatever terminology you want to call it, that have multiple locations in our area. Because that's essentially what we're doing
In our service area.
in our service area. There are opportunities to, let's say you have a business in Minneapolis and you want to connect from Marshfield to Minneapolis. There is an opportunity for us to become part of that. And, we would provide just that mile or two in the city, and then everything else would be provided by someone else. But generally, it's not economical for the customer, nor the providers to parse it up that way. So it's not an area that we've really tried to get in, if you will. And if you make your system a lot more complicated, you're going to need to have more staff, which we don't have currently. We're using existing staff and consultants. So, but to your point, I would say the existing customer base, there are more, but not a lot.
Can't put a number on it. Less
I've
than
been-
100?
Yes, definitely less than 100.
Less than 50?
I would think so. Yes, less than 50.
Gabrielle.
If we wrote the policy to say that 100% is the customer's cost, but then there's a certain circumstance that would make it advantageous for the utility to participate like 20,000, 25,000 or whatever. Is that something that we couldn't do because the policy then states that we're not supposed to? Or could we take like the strict approach? And then if we make the decision that it makes more sense for us to contribute, then we can, or how does that work?
I think you can write the policy however you want. I would caution you getting into those gray areas, because then it would come back to this body to have to make those decisions on when to apply support and when not to. Based on, my experience, and Tony obviously has been working on this for a number of years as well. I think our biggest issue comes into, let's say your company comes forward and says you want an extension, so we connect two buildings, let's say. So we work it up, you pay for it, we put it in service. A year later, next company comes and says he wants to connect. And now we have to do some extension to put his businesses on, but we're also able to leverage the investment that you made originally. But there is no mechanism now to go back on the original one, and we've thought about it, but it's not, again, not an easy way to make a determination. Okay, is it some percentage of the original install? Does that run out for the depreciation? Is it 5 years? There's just so many variables. We keep it clean at cost causer pays for the portion that we pay for. Again, it's not to say it has to be that way, it's just the way it's been.
When somebody signs up for this service, how many years are they locked into?
5.
It's either 5 or 10, I thought, depending on the contract.
So you at least have some period of time to get if we were gonna front the money, you'd have to get that whole investment back over that initial term.
Yeah, and I do think in some cases, those 10 ones, they want to do longer term so they can cover their investment as well.
Sure. Are we helping at all?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think it's a good discussion, and I think about like how the city sometimes we want we want to encourage development, and so we'll say to people like, hey, if you build something that has a tax assessed value of this much, every year we'll give you a certain amount, take it away from your taxes, just to kind of encourage them. So could we, I don't know, would it be advantageous for us to say, if you sign on to a 10-year agreement, every year we'll take, cover 5% of that initial capital cost that you had. And, by 10 years, 50% of that capital cost would have been kind of rebated to yours. I don't know if that would incentivize people or not.
I don't know if it would or not either. Valid question.
Yeah.
It also begs the question of are we mixing two issues of economic development and operating the utility? Because really in my opinion, the utility should operate at a market rate that should operate without regard to that economic development. That sounds like a city type of thing.
Oh, unless we want more customers.
Nate, did you still?
I was just trying to figure out what the goal would be is it to get more customers or share costs? Because shared cost, that wouldn't do anything with sharing the cost necessarily. It would make more cost, really. So the goal would be, if we lowered the rates, is to attract more people. But, yeah, I don't know.
Can I,
Absolutely.
Tony, can you, off the top of your head, maybe in the last 5 to 10 years, how many customers have come forward or projects have come forward that haven't gone through?
There've been a couple that haven't gone through, but maybe five, maybe in the last 5 years. But maybe there's been 5 that have gone through potentially. And some of those have really been with existing customers. So like if the city adds on an additional building when they did either the zoo or the zoo welcome center or the zoo maintenance building, those are all individual projects. We would consider them. Yeah.
So I guess the question of the market, I don't think the market is full and we're missing out, if that's what you're trying to ask. And I
don't know that that's what we're trying to ask.
Okay.
Kind of.
I think the question in my mind is, how much are we trying to grow this utility for customers? Is that the goal, because historically, and that's why we're having a policy discussion, historically, it's not necessarily been to go get a bunch of customers. It's basically just to take advantage of opportunities that help us reduce the cost of what we would have all of the cost for on the electric and water utility, because we were going to have to have this for ourselves anyway. So that would be a big shift in thinking from cost recovery to, we're gonna take this to market and try to grow it for some reason. Nick?
I look at this as being different from the other utilities, because for most buildings, you have to have water connected to it. And probably for all buildings, you have to have electricity connected to it. So people have to come here to get those utilities. But like you said, if there's not somebody knocking on the door and saying, hey, we'd like to get into this, but we can't afford it, then it's not like they're required to have it. They can get charter, or they can get someone else, to provide their needs if they don't need this level of connectivity. So I'm happy with the policy the way it's written.
Any further discussion on stuff on number 2? Are we making any progress?
But the term lease, because, and I might just have the wrong in my head, I might think lease, I think of cars, like you lease a car and then potentially you could buy it. But they're not gonna buy this. So are they really leasing it or are they using it? So you have lease written twice.
It's considered a lease agreement. They're leasing the right to use it through the terms of the lease agreement. So the agreement says that they pay an upfront capital cost and then they pay a lease fee or an annual fee, quarterly fee. And then they have there's a term in there and, and notice provisions related to that term, like any legal agreement. No different than if you lease space. So yeah, you're leasing it, but there's no transfer of ownership. There's no transfer of assets. All the assets still remain utilities.
So a form of real estate lease is a really good comparison. Total tangent, but does that trigger the change in accounting principles that these have to be accounted for differently, these leases?
If we renew contracts, then yes, probably.
Okay. Just a geeky off in the side thing. Does that help on the lease piece? Okay. Not knowing whether we made progress on that or not, let's move on a little bit though for number 3. Cost rates and financial management. Number 1, cost of service. After seeing the cost of service study and thinking about how thin this market is, how do we feel about needing a cost of service study? Because cost of service study would drive rate versus, that would be a change in pricing versus the market rate.
And that's a very budgetary figure that I provided. It's based on someone else that did a cost of service study about 7 years ago, and then we provided some inflation on top of it. Because as you know, as you reach out to a provider, then it starts a longer conversation and they want more detail. And at this point, I feel like you guys were at that point. Well, let's really turn over every rock, if you will.
And we do cost of service studies with regard to electric and water as part of the rate cases. And in my mind, those make sense because we have a number of different rate classes. We have residential, we have commercial, we have industrial, multiple classes of commercial. All of that makes sense to me, for they have different costs to serve. But if we have 9 to 12 customers on this service, is there really enough differentiation between them to tier them out into different classes?
Yeah, I would say not. I mean, in the sense that they've already paid the upfront cost of establishing the service, the capital, if you will.
Mhm.
And I don't see us going to charge different people different amounts based on a cost of service for that number of customers. Or to spend 10 to 25,000 to do it.
Yeah. Given the way you describe the service of connecting stuff on the ends I can't imagine our cost for different people would be different.
So are you saying that maybe we strike that from the policy?
I think that can be struck. I think number two, rate structure, fair market value, or basically the market pricing makes the most sense. And as I researched and contrasted our conversation last month about the difference between market-based regulation, or the way we're looking at this, and the bottom-up rate of return driving what the price is. The big difference is that the electric and utility rate of return model is the monopoly. And with the monopoly comes the guaranteed ability to collect your capital costs back over time, because your customers don't have choice. In this, there is no monopoly, as we discussed last time, which means that for the financial stability of the communication utility, we have to get our costs back as quickly as possible, which means market rates. If somehow we get too much, yeah, I think we need to deal with that. I agree that we don't need to hold more than what's necessary, but I don't think we should hamstring ourselves into a future commission having to borrow to maintain the plant, or just not continuing the service to outside customers.
I think that doing the fair market value without having a cost of service survey might be difficult. We won't really know what the fair market value is. It might be just easier to do a rate of return.
Cost of service would be an accounting approach to arriving at what your cost to provide the service is. If you were in a market-based situation, you would go survey what similar providers like this are charging, and you would try to charge something similar than that. That's a market approach.
Right. So you're saying just completely strike out having any kind of goal for an ROR?
That is correct.
I think I would like it more to be on the ROR goal. Because that's kind of how we operate, even though I realize you're saying that there's a monopoly and stuff like that, but I think it makes it a little more like, this is how much it costs, this is how much we replace, and we're not a private organization. So we're not gonna just try to match all the profit organizations. So I think philosophically, I think it matches better with a municipal utility.
I think a municipal utility, the way we're talking about electric and water with a monopoly, I am all in favor of that. If we're talking about a municipal utility like wastewater operated by the city, 100% in favor. I assume you guys have an ROR and build the rates upwards. In the case of this, which is market-based, unregulated, if we aren't going to be sure that we're collecting the rates back, we shouldn't be offering it.
I think we are collecting the rates back. I think the question.
We are, but we're
Yeah.
doing it at a
Right.
higher than,
Right, and we are regulated, we're regulated by us.
well, we're the regulation, but we
Exactly.
can't make a monopoly.
So, if the commission says, hey, we can do a rate of return of this, and this will give us what we need to operate it well, to do all the repairs, to repair, in 30 years to replace this. We've got all these ducks in a row, and we can do that at this ROR. To me, that's better than saying we're gonna make as much money as these other private entities. That's
If-
just how, I know you're arguing that's
Yeah,
the perspective.
we may agree to disagree on this point.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
that's fair. But
Yeah.
I don't think that we can go rate of return based.
That's what we've been doing now.
No,
Yes,
No.
we have. We've just.
we
been-
show a rate of return on the financial statements, but we don't base our prices on a rate of return.
This has been sort of unregulated for 20 years. So we haven't been doing anything.
Well, they have been basing the price on market rates at some time in the past, Lord only knows when, but
So
When's the last time we changed our rates?
I think in 2011, 2012, at that time, the
Well, I
reset.
guess it's hardly market based. I mean,
Well,
prices have gone up and gone down and all over the
right,
place.
we're
since
not
then.
doing market based.
Well, yes, we are. Based off of something that's 15
Right.
years old. What I'm saying is if we go market based now and you had a true market
Right.
and you'd have a mix of private and public contractors or entities, you could well end up a lot higher.
Exactly. And so what I'm
And I'm not saying
is-
we shouldn't.
well, what I'm saying though is that how it's been operating has not been, people have not been going out and looking at the market. We've been basing it on how much money we've been making. So we've operated a certain way, even if people thought we weren't operating a certain way.
Okay, if you don't change your prices in 13 years, I don't know that we're basing it on that either. I mean, our rate of
I think
return,
it's fair to say that it's been so small, it's not been paid attention to in the
Yeah.
sense of how the pricing has been. So I don't think you can say that it's been rate of return managed upwards because prices haven't changed. And you can argue that they haven't checked the market price in a substantial time. But that's also why we're having this conversation.
I would
Nick
note,
and then Mike.
I would note that most of all of the agreements have an annual escalator in them, at 3%. So that's been some adjustment.
Yeah.
To say it's at market or not.
well, but it's been an adjustment that's occurred.
So you write an agreement that is for a period of time and then converts to an annual escalator.
There's a term within there with notice, and then there's an automatic annual escalator.
At which point, once they're in the annual escalator, they can leave at any point. They're not tied in for any period.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, whatever the notice provision is.
Understood, but I'm assuming that's months and not years. Mike?
I like the market rate approach better. But I do think that I don't know what the approach looks like to see what market rate actually is. I mean, can we include something every 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, something
Right, whatever we
that
want.
would kind of substantiate it. I just feel like rate of return makes us vulnerable in a reality where something catastrophic happens. I would like enough in there to give a comfort level, but I also understand the argument with making too much basically. So I don't know. I think the approach of possibly putting in a timeline for evaluations, and like I said, I don't know what that looks like. If it's a few phone calls or emails, or if it's a month-long study, but
If we have to spend a couple $1,000s to get a market study done on the price versus $20,000 or $30,000 for a cost of service, which is very accounting driven, I think that would make sense to me. And I think if I were looking at this holistically, a recurring market check that comes before this commission, whether it's every 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and a recurring, for lack of a better word, what I see in the condo world, the reserve study, where you look at, or like Nick gave us here with the estimated plant replacement. And so when you're looking at what the market rate is and you're looking at what you have for reserves and what you might potentially need for reserves at that moment, you're getting a sense at the same time, every 3 years, every 4 years, my rates are fair and I'm over, under, or perfectly reserved. And if we're under reserved, I don't know where we go. If we're over reserved, I think we have to have a part of this policy that says what happens.
agreed.
It would be good. I would agree with the idea of a market study because it'd be nice to know if we're above or below the market. We really don't know. We just know that we haven't had customers leaving us. We haven't had customers wanting to join us. So that either means you're in the sweet spot or there isn't a market.
I think you also have, yeah, I agree.
We'll have to do some research on that aspect. I'm a little concerned that it's not as easy as you're hoping.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Generally, if you call one of the big providers today, you don't lease, you lease space to get from point A to point B, but you're sharing a strand with someone else. You don't have 100% of that capacity to yourself. And there's a sharing component to that has to be considered or at least thought about to understand how that impacts the rate.
Does sharing affect security?
I don't know, yeah. Security, service provider, or uptime, number of aspects, because now you're having to go through the provider's electronics because they're the one lighting the fiber optic cable, not themselves. So there's other, so yeah, it's complicated, I think.
The more we talk about this, the more specialized this service seems to be.
Yeah,
There's no real direct competitor as far as security, but there's a light competitors, right? Instead of just sharing those an issue. So nobody can really provide actually the dark fiber aspect. It's already lit and we're sharing it. So there's nobody more secure than what we offer. If you want security, we offer the best.
And was that the reason that the utility built this?
Mhm.
Because they were concerned about the security issue,
Well, I think,
or just a part of it?
yeah, it was 25 years ago. I think at that time fiber wasn't as plentiful, so you were relying on copper and other technologies to create those connections. They weren't as reliable, so the vision then I think was to put the fiber in, knowing that it would be the most secure, but also the most reliable.
So do we have a monopoly on secure fiber? Just the question.
Well, we might have a market monopoly, but we don't have a statutory monopoly.
There's nothing that disallows it, right? We could have competitors.
There's nothing that holds a customer to us.
Versus you
That
can't-
says you must take.
Nobody can
Someone
start
else
another.
could come and do it.
Sure.
You can't start another electric utility in Marshfield. That's why it's a monopoly versus it's just expensive to do.
yeah, just expensive for somebody else to come in,
Yeah,
I
like
did
Charter
know
could or whoever.
it's just too risky.
two customers put in their own plant and own their own network.
So they can, and they have.
At least two.
To that I'm aware of, yes.
Yeah.
And can you theorize why they would have done that versus our service? Was it a cost issue or a security issue for them? Or something else?
These two are on opposite ends of the spectrum, I would say. Security was definitely very high in their needs. But I think the one was just, it was a very short proximity between the facilities, so it made more sense for them just to make the installation. And the other one is a very intense user.
Okay.
So they decided that that made more sense for them to go that route.
Do we have consensus on anything? Because I think we want to keep moving. Well, we're having good discussion. We want to keep this back next month. Is there anything we want to see try to be worked into this?
Just want to confirm my understanding of this then too. So if we're shooting for 1.5 in reserves to cover a cost for replacement, we're currently at roughly 1 times. Would that be accurate? Roughly 1 times?
I think 1.8 and we're at 2 million. Or no, off on the plan. Is the plan 1.5? I'm sorry. 1.8 and 2 million, I think, cash.
So just over 1 times, right? So the goal is 1.5. That changing in rate would significantly slow that down. It'd take a long time to get there.
Well, and the cash reserve is targeted as written, as drafted is 1.5, but the total replacement cost on Nick's sheet here is 2.5 million. So I don't-
It's 1.5 times he's talking about.
1.5 times our book value, right?
Correct, 1.5 times. So the current plant in service is $1.6 million. So 1.5 times that is going to be upwards of 2.5, correct?
We're a ways from that.
We're a ways from that.
So that
From a
would,
cash perspective, yes, we're at, yes. If 2.5 is the replacement cost, then the cash is closer to 2 million or 1.8. Sorry, I didn't look at all the numbers before the meeting.
I think there's 3 numbers here.
Yes.
There's the book value of the plant, which if we multiply it times 1.5 is the target cash reserve. There's the actual cash reserve, and then there's the estimated replacement cost. Those are the 3 numbers we're trying to find.
So the book value is 1.6,
Times 1.5
2.4,
is a 2.4 target cash reserve per this policy.
correct. And the
Actual cash reserve right now is
2 million.
two, and the estimated replacement cost right now is 2.5.
Correct. So that means to Nate's point, the 1.5 multiplier probably needs to be increased if we want to reflect the 2.5 replacement value.
Exactly.
But isn't the cash reserve supposed to incorporate the replacement? Like, we're not just gonna sit around with 2.54 million when a squirrel eats through. Like, it's because we might need to do a replacement, right?
It's because we may have to maintain the plant, yes.
Yeah, so when we're looking at, we need 2.4. Part of that is for replacement that's scheduled. Like for overhead, it could be potentially in the next 10 years. Underground, it wouldn't be for, it might not start in the next 10 years, but can go all the way up to the next 30 years. So it's a long time to accumulate 400,000 more. Now granted, I know costs are gonna go up and stuff like that, but it's not like today we have to have the replacement for a project that might be 25 years from now.
I know, given that none of us have really, nobody on a commission has looked at this since it started. I don't know that we know the answer to that question. And I don't know that we know that 1.5 is not the right number. I think we almost have to pick a number and go with it for a little while and watch it to see whether it's the right number, because I agree with you, we don't need to have the full replacement value in reserve, but I can't tell you that I'm 100% comfortable with whether we're fully reserved or not, because having just started thinking of it in these ways,
I mean, I think
there's no track record.
this discussion is very, very important.
Whatever we end up with, the win that comes out of this is a policy related to the communications utility. Dark fiber, sorry.
Like, just out of curiosity, Nick had mentioned a couple of the replacements or repairs that had to be done recently. Does that come out of this then?
We're paying for that out of the cash in the communication utility.
So
Yes.
potentially over the course of time.
Yeah, it's not
that
just
could-
going up, it's
Yeah.
also having expenditures from it.
So make sure.
Mike, I think that's the other thing to keep in mind is you're probably not going to have a day when you're going to have to replace the whole system.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And I think, when I think about if I were 5 years in the future and seeing this come back in front of the commission with a policy written, and now we're looking at, how the market rate has changed and maybe what our prices need to do and where we're at reserve wise. Let's just pick some horrendous numbers. We got $10 million in cash reserve, and we see a $2 million potential plan. We're all in agreement that that's probably over reserved. But what if it's 3 million against 2.5? How long does it have to be over reserved before you agree that it's over reserved?
What do we do with the M1? Are we 1.5? Replace, like, we picked 5 million, but why did we pick 5 million?
Because the number would be hellacious if we actually did 1.
Well, with M1 specifically, the biggest catastrophic event would be an engine or power turbine failure. So we have 2 of those of each. So we went through the manufacturer. They gave us values to go through that process of refurbishing them or updating them if they failed catastrophically. I think the number is actually 7 million now. To your point about, why is it 1.5? What's electric and water? Well, you have to look at electric's is $117 million of plant base. Water's $57 million of plant base. So if you're going to go 1.5 or 2 times that, we're talking in excess of $300 million. So that doesn't make sense. That's why it's a different approach per se. I think you also have to think about, back to your point about the risk. Electric and water utility has facilities across the, varying types of equipment across the landscape, if you will, between just much more. Whereas the fiber utility is a little bit more concentrated on the fiber optic cable and the splice cases and expansion loops, and then the connectors to hold them to the poles. I mean, there isn't the pref law of inventory is not to the same degree. So there's variances here. There's differences, and that's why it's just a slightly different. It's a different approach. I don't. You could argue one way or the other for all of them. It's not easy.
So,
It's interesting though, the Marshfield Utilities itself is paying a bulk of it. Like it's 50% is us.
yes,
So I mean,
Yeah.
which fits with, we built it for us.
yeah. Because you could take another model that takes us out of the equation and share the costs with the users outside of us. That's another way of looking at it. And their rates should go up.
Could, but I don't know.
Just saying, you
It's
could.
fair.
Because it's our network, so we're paying the rate that everybody else pays too.
Yes,
And the rates are the same.
It is interesting, because when you look at that, if you change the rate of return, the biggest savings to the biggest customers would be the electric and the water. Would be, $2,000 to $3,000.
Be nice.
Well, from left to right, so it doesn't matter.
any other discussion on this, or shall we take it up again next month? Next month, I'm seeing nods.
Mhm.
We're gonna need to do a little work on this.
Yeah, so just my takeaway is obviously you talked about non-regulated. We can add some language to section 1 as it relates to that, just to note that it's non-regulated, maybe non-monopoly or something to that effect. And then the other thing I took back was, is there a way to really figure out what the market rate is?
Yeah.
And how much would it cost to provide that if indeed it's possible? Did I miss any other things you're looking for?
Side question related to this is, did I understand correctly that our pilot payment's based on just utility, the plant in service for the electric utility? So all of this is not subject to pilot?
Correct. Electric and water are only one subject to pilot by state statute. The communication utility does pay some small fees to the state, but they're relatively small. Because our revenue is very small in comparison to what the more traditional telecom companies provide.
Even for like personal property tax too, that's exempt. And solely the equipment that we have, not necessarily real estate, but equipment, all in all, okay.
Anything else before we move on? Okay. Good discussion, by the way. Love it when we have all this input. Number 10, job orders.
None for approval, just as I noted, the last one I think in the list is the one so job order numbers have different, 5,000 is water, 18,000 is electric, 9,000 is charge outs, and then 30,000 are fiber. And you see the last one on the list is a fiber job order. It's below the $25,000 threshold, that's why you just see on the list and there's no approval needed.
Probably wouldn't have caught that if you hadn't highlighted that. All right. Any questions on the job orders?
When I say charge out, Stratford is a charge out. If we're doing work for someone's equipment on their side of the meter, if it wants to charge out, so it falls into a different bucket.
No approval needed there. So we're up to number 11, bills and payroll.
Bills have been reviewed and certified good for payment.
Is there a motion to approve the bills and payroll? By Gabrielle, second by Nick. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Number 12, previous meeting minutes for November 17th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? By Nick,
I'll say.
second by Natasha. Any changes? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 13, financial reports.
We included are the November account reports and the October financials. Good question.
Questions? Yes.
So it said that the M1 production costs, we've been running it a lot, so it went up, but that it had sort of balanced out by the increase in sales. Is that what usually happens where you run it more, but then does it usually balance out like that?
To a point, we receive revenue for running the plant. So then sales for resale are higher to cover some of the costs.
Okay. So it doesn't always balance out. Most of the time it does.
Well, there's three different ways we operate the plant. One is when the MISO market calls us to run. Those, unless, as long as it's a normal run, we should be even or better than even. So there's positive revenue. The guys have to, team, I should say, every 60 to 90 days, we'll run the plant just to make sure that it's ready to run. There, we will generally run at a loss. And then the third is when we do stack testing, which is every 5 years. And again, generally it's in a loss because we're not worried about what the MISO market is paying us. We're worried about meeting the regulations that have to be met. But all those savings go passed on to the customers.
Good. Any other questions? Moving on to number 14, approval to go into closed session per Wisconsin State Statute 19.851E. Deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session for the purpose of discussing land lease with One Energy Renewables, purchase power agreements with Great Lakes Utilities and Wisconsin Public Service Corporation. Also, at the same time, approval to go into closed session per Wisconsin State Statute 19.851C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility for the purpose of discussing general manager review. Do we have a motion to go into those closed sessions by Gabrielle? Second by Nate. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we will take a couple minutes and then we'll be in closed session.